How do you get faster and more accurate in PTE reading? One video. That's all you need. But before I say anything, look at this question. 4 gaps and 8 options. Pause the video right now and do it as fast as you can.
All right, you're back. Now tell me 2 things. First, how long did that take you? And second, how many did you get right? If it took you more than a minute, or you got even one wrong, stay with me till the end. Because I'm going to show you 3 simple steps that can make you much faster at these questions, without trying to understand every single word. And here's the part that surprises most students. For a lot of these gaps, you don't actually need to understand the whole sentence. You just need to know what kind of word belongs in the gap. Sounds simple, right? Okay, let me show you exactly what I mean. So every filling the blanks question follows the same basic process. 3 steps, and this is important. Think order every time. Step 1. Look at the options and find the word type of each one. Step 2. Look at the sentence and figure out what type the gap need. And step 3. Only if you are still stuck between 2 options, think about meaning and collocations. That's it. 3 steps. But here's where most students make a mistake. They start with step 3. They read the whole sentence. They translate in their hands. They think about the meaning. Then they look at the options and think, which one sounds right? And suddenly one gap takes 20 seconds. Then another one takes 30 seconds. And before you know it, you're running out of time. Though we're going to do the opposite. Grammar first, meaning last, okay? Let's start. Alright, step 1 is actually really easy. You don't need to understand the word, you just need to look at the ending. That's it. Let's go through them quickly. Nouns often end in tion, ment blah blah, thus a reduction, agreement. And adjective often end in ousful blah blah, such as famous, fruitful, and adverbs usually add y, such as brightly, rapidly. That's probably the easiest one. And verbs you often see ending like iz, I, y, blah blah, such as organize, generate. So now don't worry about memorizing every single ending perfectly. The point is to get a quick clue. You are looking at the words and thinking, okay, noun, okay, verb, that's all. And honestly, this is worth practicing, because once you can recognize the word types quickly, reading gets much easier. Now, one more thing, and this comes up all the time, so don't skip this one. An ing word and a participle can both work like adjectives, and this is where things get a little confusing. So let's use one word, developing. Look at this. A developing country. Here developing is describing the country, so it's working like an adjective. But now look at this. India is developing rapidly. Same word, but now it's tell us what India is doing. So here, developing is of verb. Be the difference? Same word, different job. And exactly the same thing can happen with a past phrase sample. For example, an unexpected result. Unexpected is describing the result. So it's an adjective. And the completed form. Completed is describing the form. Again, adjective. So how do you turn them apart? Don't overthink it. Just ask yourself one question. Is this word describing something, or is it showing an action? If it's describing something, adjective. If it's showing an action, verb. Though keep that in your head, cause we're going to use it just a second. Right, now let's sort our ed options. And watch how quickly this goes. Essential ends in al, adjective. Frequent, ent adjective. Substantially, ly. adverb. Reduction, tion. Noun, residence, plural noun. Assesses, that's a verb. And maintain, verb. It the baseball. And finally in standing. This one is interesting. It's an ing word, so it could be a verb, or depending on the sentence, it could work like an adjective. Remember what we just talked about? Is it describing something? Or is it showing an action? Great. 8 words and 4 basic word cards. And that took us a lot 20 seconds. And look at that. Half the job is already done. And by the way, these are exactly the kinds of words you need to recognize quickly in TT. You don't want to spend test time thinking. Wait is maintain a noun or a verb. You want to know it immediately. If you don't know some of these words, that's okay. You can practice them in EasyPTE step. We've prepared a recent TT reading and writing vocabulary there, and the words are labeled with their word types, so you can practice not only the meaning but also whether a word is a noun, verb, adjective, or adverb. And the whole thing is, okay, now let's actually use these word types to solve the question. This is the important part, and honestly, this is the part most people never learned properly. So I'm going to give you 2 methods. Method 1 is for most gaps, and method 2 is for the trick ones. Let's start with method 1. Okay, I'm putting a table on the screen now. Don't panic when you see it. It looked like a lot, but it's really just 5 ideas. And once you understand these 5, you will stop trying to read every sentence from beginning to end. Instead, you will look at the words right next to the gap, the neighbor. And that's why I call it check the neighbor. And 1 word on the left and 1 word on the right, that's usually enough. First, a and the. If you see an article before the gap and there's none after the gap is usually an adjective. Look at this. A gap increase in options are sharp, sharply, sharply. Okay, look left. That's an article. Look right. Increase. That's a noun. Though what do we? An adjective. Though sharp is adjective. And sharply is verb. Sharply is adverb. Though sharp. All right? We didn't even need to understand the sentence. That's the point. Now let's see it round. For example, a rapid gap in process. Options are decline, declining, blind. Look left, a rapid, a article plus adjective. And look right, in. That's a proposition. So what do we need? A noun, right? Decline. So remember this little pattern. Article plus, gap plus, noun means adjective, and article plus adjective plus gap means noun. Pretty useful, right? Now let's look at the adverbs. If the gap comes right after a verb, it can be adverb. For example, precise rose gap last year, sharp or sharply. Rose is a verb, though sharply. Easy, right? So if you see a verb right next to the gap, keep adverb in your mind. And remember, adverb is your big clue. Now we're getting into the really useful stuff. I call this signal word because when you see one of these words, it basically tells you what comes next. You don't have to guess, you just know. For example, 2 plus base verb. 2 gap cost. Reduce, reduction, reduce. After 2, so is, reduce, down. And same thing with can, will, would, should, and must. They take a base verb. And has, have, and had, past tense. For example, has gap the data. Collect, collected, collected. And now, one that students often get confused about is what is you just reduce the options without translating the whole sentence. That's the power of this signal. Okay, next one, quantity words. These are super easy. Words like several, some, a few, and many usually need a plural noun after them. For example, several, gap. Reduction or reductions, don't translate, just reductions. Okay, and one usually take a singular noun. That's it. And finally, my favorite one, and. Seriously, whenever you see and near a gap, pay attention, because and often connects two things of the same form. Look at this. Designed to improve access and gap costs. Options are reduced, reduces, and reducing. Look across the and. What's on the other side? Improve. Base verb. So the gap should also be a base verb. Reduce. Already that's it. You're basically copying the form across the and this is one of the fastest clues you can get in PTE. So articles, adverbs, signal words, quantity words, and 5 ideas. That's really all you need for method 1. Take a screenshot of that table. Seriously, keep it somewhere. And one more thing. When you're doing this in the real test, don't look 2 or 3 words away. Start with the word touching the gap. Left, right, neighborhood. Okay, now let's go back to our question. And this time, what's the process? Don't think about the meaning first. Think about grammar. Think about the gap 1 and gap part. What's on the left? And its article. And what's on the right? Part. What's done? Full article plus gap plus done. We need an adjective. Our adjectives are essential, 3-point, and in starting. 3 option. So let's go one more step further.
It's an, not a.
An N comes before a vowel song, and N comes before a vowel song. We coin starts with a S. Okay, 2 left. Now installing. Remember our little rule? An ing word can be an adjective. What would be here? Is the part doing the installing? No, it's not showing an action, though installing doesn't work here. The answer is essential. That's it. Gap 2. Look at gap 2. Right next to the gap is lower. That an adjective. So what can describe an adjective?
Adverb.
And look at our options. Only one ends in ly, substantially. Okay, and notice. I still don't really need to know what the whole sentence means. That's the point. Gap 3. Left side is admirable. Article plus adjective. And right side is proposition. So we need a noun. Our nouns are reduction and the resting. Now look at the article again. Admirable. It's a singular noun. Residence is plural. Okay, the answer is reductions. And now the last one. In this sentence, who's the subject? Each municipal team, right? Where's the main verb? There isn't one, right? So we need a verb. Now look at the end. Gap and publishes. There's our end. Look across it. Publishes. So the gap needs the same form. Our options are maintain, installing, senses. Maintain, base verb, wrong. Installing, no helping verb, wrong. So the answer is senses. And look at that. The sentence basically gave us the answer. It told us the form we needed. That's why I always say, when you see and near a gap, look across it. All right? Okay, so for gaps down, and notice something. We didn't really use meaning, but in a real PTE test, sometimes grammar leaves you with two options. Maybe both are nouns, maybe both are verbs, maybe both fit grammatically. Now what? That's when we move to step 3, collocation. And honestly, this is where English becomes much more about memory, because some words just like to live together. For example, play a role, not make a role, draw a conclusion, not do a conclusion, pose a threat, raise awareness, meet the demand, conduct research, take measures, reach a consensus, gain access. These combinations are not always logical. They're just the combinations English speakers use. So you need to learn them. And here's the important part. You can't really learn these during the test. You need to learn them before the test. Now, if you have plenty of time, absolutely, build your own list and practice them every day. But if you're short on time, there's an easier way. Try the type feature in EasyPTE. We've organized the common collocations created and collected by PTE candidates, including PTE reading and writing collocations. We've all called it, and we've also labeled the word types and included the relevant grammar knowledge, so you can practice the actual patterns you need for the exam. And yes, it's completely free. So if you're thinking, I don't have time to build all these lists myself.
Oh, right, Joel.
Don't. Pioneering work. Use the list that's already been organized for you. All right, let's bring the whole thing together. 3 steps. Step 1. Look at the options. Find the word type. Look at the ending. Noun, verb, adjective, and verb. And step 2. Look at the gap. Find the word type it needs. And step 3. Only one grammar leaves you stuck between 2 options. Think about the collocations and meaning. And please don't change that order. That's probably the biggest thing that I want you to remember from this video. Grammar first, collocation second, meaning last. Because when students are slow on these questions, they're usually doing exactly the opposite. They're trying to understand everything first. You don't need to. Look at the options. Turn the gap. Find the form, use the grammar, then use collocations. That's it. And if filling the blank starts feeling very different, it stops being, do I understand this sentence? And becomes, what kind of word belongs here? Much faster, much easier, and much more accurate. All right, that's it from me. If this helped, give it a like, and I will see you in the next one.